Knicks, game one in Boston, pulling off a very surprising comeback and a surprising result. Knicks down 20 mid-third quarter, come all the way back from 20 points down, lose the lead again, and then make the plays when they needed to make the plays. Late in the fourth quarter and overtime. And Sean, I want to start with you because we were both there last night. Did you think this was the Celtics just shooting themselves in the foot? Did you think this was the Knicks' execution? Where do you lie on that?
Well, if it was the Celtics shooting themselves in the foot, they would have missed. They missed everybody else that they shot in the game. I thought it was a combination of things. It was the Celtics having one of those nightmare outlier nights where they just can't make a shot, and you're doing it against the wrong dude leading the wrong team on the other side. Because, as I kept saying, as the lead was dwindling down in the third quarter into the fourth, all the Knicks need here is to get to the ninth inning and to bring Mariano Rivera in the game, and he's going to close it because that's what he's been doing for 2 years. So you beg the Knicks to get back in the game. I think what is more remarkable is not that the Knicks came from 20 points down, is that the Celtics were up by 20 in the first place as poorly as they were playing.
I agree. I didn't think that Boston played particularly well, and it was surprising to see the Knicks there. I mean, especially because you could check off some of the boxes for the Knicks of the things that they hadn't gotten in the past that they were looking for, particularly Miles McBride scoring. But then, obviously, Mark, they come storming back. And just from your spot where you were watching the game, 20 points down, what were you thinking at that time?
From my spot in Florida, I was thinking we've seen this show many times before. The Celtics were not playing well and were still up 20 points. I couldn't believe they were still up 20. But the big takeaway and the good news for Celtics fans, if there are any Celtics fans watching, is you miss a playoff record 45 three-pointers and you still lose in the final seconds of overtime. So I think that's and then Porzingis, I don't know what the reporting is today, but I thought they really did miss Porzingis. I know he didn't look good in the first half, maybe because he was sick. But, I mean, he gives them another dimension. When he would have hit a few threes, and maybe one or two threes would have got everyone else going. And I feel Derek White is such a glue piece. He's killed the Knicks in the first four regular season games. And right from the opening possession, he bricked a three-pointer. He was, I think, 5 of 16 from three-point range, took the most three-pointers for the Celtics. When he's not hitting, I feel when he's hitting, it gets everyone else going. He's that type of energizer, and he was just god-awful. Listen, if you're a Celtic fan, you got to say we're not missing 45 three-pointers in Game 2.
Interesting thing for me, Mark and Sean, was – something happened with the Knicks last night that you didn't see a lot during the season, and that was guys outside of Jalen Brunson coming through in really big spots, and really many different players outside of Brunson making big plays down the stretch. Because Brunson, yes, certainly Mariano Rivera up here in the NBA, but last night in that overtime, a couple turnovers, a couple missed shots, uncharacteristic, and it was OG Anunoby, and it was Mikal Bridges, and it was, Karl Towns with a tip, and it was other guys making big plays. And to me, that bodes well for a team that really, I think, is at its best when everyone is kind of engaged and involved, particularly because that gets them engaged on the defensive end. Sean, the third quarter, I think you had it at 19 of 20 shots for the Celtics were threes. Do you see the Knicks? I mean, they switched a lot, and they like what happened there. Do you see the Knicks doing anything special to take things away from the Celtics to make it difficult from them, or were they just missing open looks?
They were largely missing open looks, but I've been doing this a long time. I had to stop in between quarters. I was staring at the box scores and doing the math, and I'm like, well, that's 19 out of 10. And my mind wouldn't accept it. I'd never seen anything like it. I'm staring. I literally checked. I never checked my math. I'm checking my math 2-3 times. Like 19, subtract the 9. They can't have just taken 19 out of 20. And then those were the actual numbers. I think when you look at it today, and now we have all the tracking data and all the advanced stuff that we can look at and see, how many of them were considered open or wide open. And the Celtics literally, it was like every other game against New York, the 4 games in the regular season, the Celtics had 27 what were considered wide open three-pointers.
Wow.
And not only, which is insane, and I think they only made 6, 7, or 8 of them, something like terrible. And they shot below 30% on wide open threes, which is a 45% shot in the NBA, and particularly for this team. And it's funny because we can sit here talking about the 45 threes that they missed, one of which would have avoided overtime, or we can talk about a guy who was 7'3", missing 3 consecutive second-grade layups. That was 2 points right there that, changes the entire course of the game. So was it something the Knicks were doing specifically? I thought the Knicks, I'll say this, I think the Knicks have to be better defensively and not give the Celtics as many open threes as they did. I think they can be better. That's the good news for Knicks fans. And I'm glad you mentioned Anunoby, because I think something, nobody ever hears me when I say it, in my little dark corner of the world. But are we going to look back at the injury to Jalen Brunson and the minutes and the load that Anunoby carried late in the season as really being significant? And anyone who watched the Knicks in the second half of the year knows how good Anunoby was, efficient offensively and shooting the ball. But just his comfort offensively, he's always been great defensively, but his comfort offensively in the big moments, how much of that was because of the load he had to carry with Brunson out those last 15 games or whatever it was?
Yeah, Sean, it's an interesting point. And obviously Bridges and Anunoby had bigger roles when Brunson was out offensively. And then I thought that it was going to be tough for one or both of those guys to adjust once Brunson came back, but Anunoby continued to score the ball regularly at a high clip. And of course there were games where he had fewer shots or Bridges had fewer shots, but by and large he continued to produce. Bridges was a little hit and miss, but to do what he did last night, 2 for 12 when he puts up that 3-pointer in overtime to get it to 106-100. And then the defensive plays we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, he showed me something, because Josh Hart always says Bridges gets criticized and it doesn't affect him at all. And I always wonder, is that true? But to see him do what he did last night, and to do what he did in that Detroit series, making big shots after struggling most of the game, I guess it is accurate. He just plays. He stays in the moment, and he's going to keep shooting and trying to make plays. Credit to him.
I defer to both of you guys on this, obviously, but here's what I was so happy for Bridges last night to get this sort of signature moment, because he sort of unwittingly has become the poster for what from afar feels like a disappointment among fans for last year's Knicks team, which everybody loved and was so close to the heart of the city, and what this year's team was going to be at the beginning, because Bridges was sort of this new face brought in. And the first game up here in Boston, everyone's complaining in the preseason about his shot. And all Bridges does is give you 40 minutes every single night. He's been an underrated defender in the league. And I think because of that perception of not being as happy with this year's team, which is all about expectations, because this statistically is the best Knicks team in the last 25 years, I think a lot of that gets put on Mikal Bridges. And for him to have a couple of signature moments and a couple of signature road wins for the Knicks, I think it's a real feel-good thing. I'm glad I can say things out loud here that I'm not allowed to say. People, by the way, I should point out, the nice thing in Boston is that Celtic fans are taking last night very well, very rationally, and very even-handed, and not at all panicking about the specter of what could happen here if this continues.
This is a great sports town. Sean, I was just thinking, if the roles were reversed and the Knicks had home court advantage and blew that lead, sure, somebody might have been fired that night. It would have just been a disaster. Mark,
you want the dark secret here for Celtic fans that they don't want to say out loud, that this Knicks team is better than any team the Celtics beat last year on their way to the championship.